Hello, Dreamcatchers, and welcome to another day in the Writers Haven. We're actually in the Haven Corner at the 2018 National Book Club Conference. We've been interviewing a lot of authors, and we have a lot of great shows in this season 3 of the Writers Haven show. And with me today is Naleighna Kai, who is the author of 5 books. We're going to talk about those books, and she also is a book whisperer. We haven't had a book whisperer on the show, so I am very excited to talk to her about that piece. But let's just jump in and talk about the work that you've been doing. So you have 5 books. What genre do you write in?
I write in science fiction, contemporary fiction, women's fiction, erotica, as also inspirational fiction.
Okay, and are you with the publisher or do you publish? Are you self-published?
I'm a hybrid author, so I've been independently published as well as with Simon and Schuster, and those are the 5 that I'm promoting today, but I'm actually the author of 12 books.
Now, see, you snuck that in. I didn't know about the 12 books. And it's in the genres that you just named. Okay, all right. So you call yourself a multi.
I am multi-genres, that's what I write in, but you called it and I called it the book whisperer, and somebody else gave me that moniker.
Okay, so let's talk about what that means.
That means I'm the person that can help people get from point A to point Z with their writing. There are a lot of people who'll say, oh, I've been writing a book for 12 years, but if you don't give yourself a deadline and say, I'm going to have a book in hand, like by my birthday or by Christmas or whatever, then it's going to be open-ended forever. You'll leave here and die with the book still in you. I'm the person that can help people to get that book out. Whether they have the writing skill set or not, I put them in touch with the best editors. I'm also a developmental editor. I'm an agent. I'm all the things that I would say one-stop shopping in a literary house. My son does all those wonderful covers. He's Woodson Creative Studio, and he's also an author himself. He was nominated for an NAACP Image Award for a book he wrote about me. So everything that has to do with the industry, I'm the person that I wish I met when I first got in the industry. And that saved a lot of trial and terror. So for me, becoming that person for everyone else, getting them the quick and dirty, this is what you need to do, and letting them know if they're not prepared to do it. That's some of the hardest part of the process, because everyone has a story to tell. It's how to get them to tell it well.
Wow, I love that. I love that. Okay. You've heard that first exclusively on the Writers Haven show. Okay, so let's get more into you, the author, and when you started and what inspires you to write.
See, what had happened was I met this guy online. It used to be Microsoft had a network where people played cards and bid whist and spades. So he started writing to me in a private chat room. It was all these erotic poetries and then all of that. And then he sent me 2 paragraphs of all these wonderful, wicked things he wanted to do to me. And I sent him back 10 pages of techniques he needed to brush up on and things he was missing. And the pages that I missed and wrote to him over the internet became chapters 16 through 22 of my first book. And it was my minister. She became my minister. She encouraged me to continue to write for healing. I'm a woman that has been through the kind of things that a lot of women have been through. My father didn't respect my right to say no. My uncle didn't respect my right to say no. So I had all of these things that have happened to me. And my mother gave me away at birth, and I was actually adopted by my biological mother. Yes, I'm a product actually of rape, and she gave me away to somebody who would love me and take care of me. But that person, who was my aunt, she actually ended up in prison 18 months later, and I ended up back where my biological mother never wanted me to be. And the abuse was exponential. That was the path that my life started on. And until I got to writing, that path didn't unwind to a point of healing. And my first book, it took my 15-year-old son to read She Touched My Soul. He says, Mom, you can't put everything that happened to you in one book. He says, you bring the reader down so low they can't get back up again. And he said, and your good male, M-A-L-E, your good male and your bad male count is off. And I said, oh my God. I took my book out of print. She Touched My Soul. I took it off the shelves. I took it out of print. It took me 15 years to heal to the point that I could write from a point of a survivor and not a victim. And he ended up doing my cover for the new book. And I argued with him about it because I wanted it in black and white, and he did it in color. And he says, and I said, no, I want it in black and white. He says, Mom, you don't live in black and white anymore. This is going to be in color, and it's one of the best covers he's ever done. But all of my books have a splinter of my soul, because each element of my healing is written into the character and the fabric of their background.
Okay, so what inspired you? I mean, so you're saying it's your life story, and then you thought, okay, I need to as part of the healing process, I need to just vomit that out, just get that out, write about it, be authentic about it. And that was the start of your writing career?
Actually, I wrote 6 novels within a 2 year period. I write longhand, yellow tablet, blue ink, and I kept writing until it all poured out at that time. And some of those sat on the shelf from year 2000, and some of them are just now coming back to be written. I've written stuff in between, but the stuff that I wrote earlier that had to sit because that's where all my pain was. Now I'm able to deal with that and write it in a way that I don't drag the reader down into the valley of condition.
Wow, you just kind of blew me away. What question was I going to ask? Okay, so you basically told me about your process. Now, the technical way in which you write, is it do you write linearly? Do you outline? Are you plotting out the story and then you jump into the actual writing? What is your process? And also, because you write in different genres, so is your approach different depending on the genre, or is it always the same?
Actually, the approach, every book has its own imprint. And it depends on whatever issue that I'm working out within myself at the time. Take My Time in the Sun. That's a book that's right now being shopped by my agent for a book deal. That book came as a result of the fact that I was working on another book. And my editor said, "You know, Lisa, Lisa's my real name. She said, this book, we can put it out, but it won't be Naleighna Kai's standard." And I said, "Oh, okay, so what does that mean?" She says, "We need to write another book." "Oh, but I need to have it in hand in a month." Okay, so now I scrapped that and I had one opening line. I cut him until I felt better. And what came from that is a story that happened with my niece and my sister, and they were both victims of child sex trafficking. So, in that story is the background of a first lady who does not believe in God. And it's because of her past, but her husband, who's a pastor, who she married before he became a minister, he doesn't know of her past. But the assistant minister in that church wants the church. And how does he do that? He attacks the man's woman in the middle of Sunday morning service and stands up and says, "Our first lady was a former prostitute." So they're in the split, and the pastor has to wonder, wait a minute, I counsel women in this. What is it about me that my wife couldn't come to me with that? So the story is more about my struggle with faith. Where was God when all of these ugly things happened to me? Where was God when all these ugly things happened to my sister and to my niece? So I'm writing my pain, I'm writing my struggle all in this, and I wrote that book in 5 days. That's because, here we go again, that's that process. So that book came that way. It wasn't in chronological order. And I don't always write in chronological order. And some of the books, they come with the message first, the theme first. Sometimes the ending comes first. Sometimes the beginning comes first, but it's always about the message, more so than anything like that. Then sometimes half the book is written, and then I have to start plotting it out. And sometimes the plot comes. So each book has a different imprint, depending on where the message needs to come from and where it needs to go.
That's powerful, very powerful. All right, and so you have 12 books. You have, are they all under the same pen name?
Yes.
They are. Okay, and the different genres that you're writing are also under the same pen name. And you've written for how many different publishers? You mentioned Simon and Schuster.
Brown Girls Publishing, and my house is Macro Publishing Group. And when I first started, I started publishing other people. And then I realized that publishing other people means babysitting other people's children, means I was neglecting my own. I wanted everybody to write when I started writing. The passion for it came, and I wanted the dog to write. I didn't even have a dog. I wanted my son started writing, my minister started writing, because I found such a release with it and such a healing. I wanted that for everybody, but I realized everybody wasn't ready. And that was my biggest lesson to learn, is to when to jump in and help and when to stay back on the sidelines and let people roll on their own. That more than anything, because I wanted people to feel what I was feeling. That was the best thing that writing ever brought me, because if it was about the money, I would have been out of this industry a long time ago.
So the writing brought healing. It was like a healing therapy for you. And then people who may have gone through those same struggles and challenges and pain are also reading your books and also getting that healing therapy as well.
But it took a minute because my first ones were more detailed in the pain until, like I said, my son.
Kind of autobiographical or like a memoir type?
More autobiographical, but I went into the details and I didn't realize I had to respect the person reading on the other end, that it might trigger something for them because I'm telling my truth. But there's a way to tell that truth that doesn't harm the person that's absorbing the lesson. If you have to take them back through there and it triggers something that hurts them, they won't get that message. And it took me a few years to realize that.
So how did you maneuver that? I mean, how do you know how far to take the reader into the calamity, the pain, the environment that you're bringing them into without cutting them off completely? I mean, you're very sensitive to that. I mean, that's basically what you're telling me. How do you do that? How do you know that?
Because I still write the entire details, and then when I go back through it, I comb through to condense it. I can allude to something and let the reader fill in the rest. That took a skill set that I didn't have in the beginning, and my most famous book, I would say, is Every Woman Needs a Wife. And I went into detail in that one, and I cringe now when I see people say, oh, that's my favorite book, and I'm like, oh my God, because I know I took it much too far, but there were so many people that loved that one. That's the one that put me on the national bestsellers list. And I was like, but now I know it is more to it than writing just every single detail of what could happen to a person. People already have that internally. There are more women who are molested and raped before they even turn 12. So they know that already. I don't have to take them through that. But it took me healing to understand that my words have a kind of power that I have them hostage for 6 hours a day to, right, I don't need to hold them hostage in their pain and mine.
So, have you ever thought of doing a nonfiction book that really got into the depths of that? Because unless I missed it, the books you've written are fiction.
Most of them are, but I did write a book with my minister called Speak It Into Existence, and that has some of the nonfiction elements, as well as I did do a special edition of My Time in the Sun that has the memoir in the back that tells that's the story of the First Lady who doesn't believe in God. I have in the back the real life story and the instances and the lessons that I learned based on, so it's part novella and part memoir. I'm not sure if the publishing house will publish the memoir portion of it because I'm thinking they're going to focus on the fiction, but I may take that at some point. I think I need to live a little more. I think I need to heal a little more. Yeah, and then I can write a memoir that it isn't just all about the pain just coming out of it. It is coming, living through it and helping others through it. I need a little bit more of that before I can just put that in print.
Okay. So there's the process of writing, which I'm so glad. Thank you so much for going into the detail of how you do it, and respecting the fact that there's different genres, and also respecting the reader, and their sensitivity about the subject, particularly if they've gone through it or they're going through it. And so, with your projects, are you still writing books that of that theme, or have you also introduced other themes and elements into your writing that whether it's published or to be published?
Well, what put me on the map, like Every Woman Needs a Wife, is the story of a woman who walks in on the husband and the mistress and says, if you're going to cheat, I need to get something out of it. So the mistress needs to come home, clean my house, keep the kids, and put some money on the bills too. So my stories all kind of centered around interesting relationship triangles. That's what put me on the map. But the women's backgrounds had those elements of my life in them. So open door marriage, we have an NBA basketball player who falls in love with an older woman, and then he asks her to marry him, and then she disappears and then reappears in his life 3 years later at the point he's about to marry someone he finds out is her niece. And the niece doesn't want to lose that money. So she puts an offer on the table she thinks he can't refuse. So here we have another triangle. And then Was It Good for You Too? Another triangle, but different. It is one woman and two men. But it is not done all about licking and sticking. It isn't about the sexual aspect. It is what are people doing these days in these polyamorous relationships as well as normal relationships. Because we remember back in the day, we had the husband and he had a woman across town and another set of kids. People just didn't talk about it, or they knew it and they let everything lie because they didn't want to, what do you say, upset the apple cart? So it's always been there, but though that has been the theme of working through interesting relationships. But the background of the women, that's where I focus on putting part of my history or my life into it.
Okay, so you are a publisher. You've been on the self-publishing side. You've been on the publishing side, the mainstream side. What advice would you give to new authors that are coming out to into this writing journey, having been on both sides of that fence?
Well, first off, I did a book on writing, so that is the nonfiction piece. I forget about that one. It's called Bearing It All, The Ins and Outs of Publishing. It's the book that I wish I had in the very beginning. And what I find is I'd say self-publish first because you control every aspect of it, from the editing, from the deadline, from the cover design, from the content. You control everything. So when you get to a point where you're going to a major house, you know what you're getting and you know what you're giving up, and you know why. Because at a certain point in time, self-published authors, quite a few of them are here today, they became New York Times best-selling authors. But they were selling books so well, it was competing with the majors, and that's why they came knocking and saying, hey, let me give you this six-figure deal. And it got to be a point that the publishers were kind of like, okay, we need to put them through some hoops so that they had to go through distributors. So they started giving the self-published authors hell. And it got to be a point, even I got upset with the process and says, you know what? It's a little too hard to be self-published. So let me get a deal with the major house. So I threw that book together for Every Woman Needs a Wife. I wrote it 4 Fridays in a row from 8 o'clock at night to 6 o'clock in the morning at a little hole in the wall on the south side of Chicago. I threw it together, and that's the book that got me a deal with Simon & Schuster. But the thing is, I learned that I had control with self-publishing. I gave up control with a major house, but what I got in return was wider distribution, but I got lower proceeds because you get 10%, just like the music industry. I got 10% on the return, but I had to spend all the money on my marketing myself. And that was one of the biggest lessons for me. And I said, okay, I regret that I put all of my royalty money in marketing, but God blessed me a few years ago with the house. And the way the money came for that house and the grants that came from the house, it shaved off almost the same amount of money that I put in for that marketing. So what it told me is God said, do what I told you to do. Focus on that writing, getting that thing. I'll cover everything else.
Okay, so you mentioned that there are, I want to call them a team of writers, but there's like a family of writers. Okay, talk to me about that.
I have a group, and it's called the NK Promo Partners. And I also have a separate group that we're doing anthologies together, and it's called the Naleighna Kai's Tribe Called Success. Yes, indeed. And the interesting thing about all of them is that we're stronger together. We pool our money to do ads in major events like the Black Women's Expo in Chicago, the Black Women's Expo in Atlanta, the Cincinnati Music Festival. So we'll take out print ads in major events as well as literary events as well that have program books. And then we do marketing materials like the one you held up earlier. We do that together because instead of spending thousands and thousands of dollars on our own, we can spend hundreds and do it together. And it has worked exponentially. Several of us have hit the national bestsellers list. Several of us have increased our sales, but also our visibility. But we love, even here today at the National Book Club Conference, I have a couple of clients. They shared a table together, and they did well together. And then even though the others aren't here, I promoted them with a contest where the readers had to look at all the covers that they were wearing on their badges and were like trying to match it up, which means I was advertising for 8 different covers and 8 different authors at the same time, and it was fun doing it. So everybody kept looking and saying, oh my God, I gotta get this book, I gotta get that book. And it does it for little or no cost to them.
So your marketing expertise obviously kicked in for that because that's an awesome idea. So what advice would you give to an aspiring writer? So we talked about those who are going into the industry and just trying to figure out the self-publishing versus getting an agent to market your book to a major. But as a writer, what advice would you give to another writer that's looking to get where you are in their journey?
Don't do it for the money. Don't do it for the money. Think about the product that you're putting out and think about 50 years from now, 75 years from now, 100 years from now. What family member of yours is going to read your book and what they're going to get out of it? Don't do it for the money, do it for the message. Research first. What path are you going to go? I'm not saying that it's hard to get with a major house because there are several conferences like RWA, Romance Writers of America. There's Book Lovers Con. It took over for RT Convention. There are editors at those houses that you can sit directly across like this and pitch your book to. That's where a lot of people are getting their book deals from. So my thing is research it first. Make sure you have a tight project. because there are some people who have really great ideas, but their stories aren't well edited and well executed. And then they have people who have mediocre ideas, but it's ready to roll because they have done their editing, developmental content, line, all of that. The publisher sometimes will go with that mediocre because that person has put in the skin in the game and they put in the work. And that's what they kind of want to see.
Really important. Well, thank you so very much for talking to us. We really enjoyed having you here. And Dreamcatchers, tune in October. That's when this show will actually air, and we will have other authors from the 2018 NBCC also air their shows. I mean, this is a great event, and it's a great opportunity for those of you who are looking to write and you're looking for inspiration and you just want to envelope yourself and embrace those other authors and also the readers who are part of the book clubs that come here. So I strongly suggest that you register for the 2019 NBCC. And thank you again for being with us. Okay, and so being a self-published author, or actually you're with a publishing house and you have a team of people that look at your books and make sure that everything is okay. So how involved are you in that process, like outside of just the writing of the books?
Um, Sometimes I might go over it with my mom and take out little pieces. Um, and if I'm writing on paper, and she's gonna type it on the computer so she can save it. We actually do go through and take some pieces out that really aren't that important.
Okay, so you're here at the National Book Club Conference. Is it exactly what you thought it would be, or is it more than you expected? Tell me about how your experience has been here.
Well, it really has been more than I expected, because I was here last year and it was very fun, and so I do expect. Well, I really didn't expect this, but it has been better.
Okay. And so what do you think that book clubs are important for authors like you?
Yes, they are, because you get a chance. Because I really love to read, and so when you go around and getting books, it's just like you it's technically you in a fantasy world, because reading is fun. It really is. And so when you get books, it's just amazing.
Okay. Are there any authors here that you wanted to make sure that you met?
Um, I know Miss Terry McMillan. I think that's it.
Okay. Okay. All right. That's fine. That's great. Okay. So your experience has been great. You're meeting a lot of other fellow authors who are inspiring. Tell me some of the authors that you're really inspired by and that you're reading.
Um, well, I do read a lot of books. I can't make out the names.
I know it's kind of one of those on the spot questions that you need a second to kind of train your brain to remember. I totally get that. I totally get that. All right. So, what are some of the books or authors that have in some way inspired your reading?
Well,
Not who you're reading, but I mean, you probably read them too, but just inspires you in any way.
Well, I read more. Well, me.
Are there any other young authors that do you? So tell me, what kind of books do you read? Let's do it that way. What kind of books do you read?
I read scary books.
Do you read like the Goosebumps series? Okay.
I have like one or two books on Goosebumps.
Okay, that's not good. And wait a minute. Oh, okay. I don't know if I killed it, but okay, let's pick these up. That's all good. That's all part of the what we do. Okay, so let me see. There was one other question. Oh, what advice would you give to aspiring writers?
Shine bright.
What does that mean?
Meaning be yourself and don't let anybody take you down.
And that's very important to life and the writing process, I'm sure. I mean, especially with the themes of the books that you've written, I can totally see that connection. Okay, what are some of the greatest achievements as a writer that you? Because this is something that a lot of people may not know. They see you as the writer and they read your books, but what are some of your greatest achievements that you want to share?
I know writing the books, getting them published. I'm guessing because this is something that I would have never thought I would have done because I really, when I was younger, I also have a passion for gymnastics, and so I thought that was going to be one of the main goals in life, but this is another one, a very great goal.
Okay, and you see yourself having a career totally and completely as a writer.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you so very much for coming on the show and spending some time with us. And Dreamcatchers, we're going to air this show as part of our season 3 series of shows where we're highlighting authors and filmmakers. And so definitely stay tuned for not only this show, but other shows that are coming down the pike. And until we meet again, catch fire on purpose. Dreamcatchers, welcome to another exciting season of the Writers Haven Show. I'm Helena, your host and executive producer. The Writers Haven Show was created to showcase the passion, process, and projects of writers of literature, television, and film. In our 3rd season, we've expanded our programming to include songwriters. We hope to inspire and motivate you with this season's lineup of artists. Stream our shows on iHeartRadio, Spreaker, iTunes, Sonos, SoundCloud, Spotify, Alexa, and YouTube. We drop new episodes every week, so subscribe and never miss a show. Find me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Tumblr at Author V. Helena, and visit our website at www.writershavenshow.com. See you in the Haven, and until next time, catch fire on purpose.
You could be my teacher. You got the skills.
The smarts?
Yes, you. You could be the teacher I never forget.
That'd be cool.
Does that corporate job even have recess? What are you gonna make of yourself?
What are you gonna make of me?